This gaming expo claims to be building a movement, and I went to it, so let's talk about it. Okay, before we start this video, I attended this event totally oblivious to any of the controversies that have since come to light. Now, later on in this video, we are going to talk a little bit about the things that are being said online, because some of it is pretty eyebrow-raising stuff. But to start things off, I think the most appropriate starting point, at least, is to kind of look at the event from my experience, totally blind, before we jump into how it has been received by the online community and some of the things that are currently being said. So for anyone that doesn't know, To The Moon Expo is a brand new gaming event here in the UK. Now, I love gaming. Open world games they're basically my love language. Hand me a map full of question marks and I'm going to be happier than any other middle-aged nerd after they dropped that Star Trek Lego set the other day. But I also preserve a really special spot in my heart for classic retro games. So if there's any opportunity to spend an afternoon with some retro titles and poke at some work in progress indie games, then my interest is piqued. So let's be honest, the current state of things, we don't exactly have a surplus of decent gaming expos in the UK at present. We've got a few, but half of them, they do feel like they're running on the budget of a mid-season Doctor Who episode from like 1974. So in this video, we are going to talk about how this expo actually held up for me, because if anyone is qualified to judge a bad expo, it's me. Look, I paid real money to go here. I'm going to put it somewhere on the screen. And trust me, I'm not sure it is physically possible to get any lower than this unless you hosted a LAN party at a Wetherspoons. Right, we're going to cover everything that this event promised to deliver, why some of the statements on the website might have left people disappointed, how it stacks up against the bigger players like EGX, and brace yourselves, Insomnia, which appears to be attempting a comeback, like a franchise reboot, I suppose, that nobody asked for, but we'll watch it anyway because nostalgia is a really powerful and deeply manipulative force. I digress. So I thought we would take a look at what the event claims to deliver. Now, I actually discovered this by complete accident. I was on Eventbrite actually trying to see if a classical music concert that I went to last Christmas was happening again, because nothing screams hardcore gamer like checking the availability of an evening dedicated to Hans Zimmer. And then suddenly right there in between, like wine tasting for dogs, dog owners, and mindfulness for accountants, was To The Moon Expo. Now, naturally, I clicked through to the website, and this is what greeted me. So there's this guy in an astronaut helmet, and he is dressed surprisingly well, like someone who got lost on the way to a John Lewis menswear photo shoot and then ended up in low gravity by mistake. Now, he looks like he's talking... He looks like he's probably delivering some inspirational, we're launching a revolution in gaming monologue. Very Interstellar, if Interstellar was filmed in Birmingham. I even double-checked my headphones were plugged in, turned up the volume, did the whole IT crowd, have you tried turning it on and off again routine. But no, absolute radio silence, no audio for this one. So I have no idea what he's saying. It could be hype, could be instructions, could be ordering a double cheeseburger on Deliveroo, who knows? But I will say this, it does look like a cool video, can't fault them for that. Just like one you have to imagine the audio for. Kind of like very avant-garde, very BBC Two at 2 a.m. Now, here's what it quotes. A gaming expo for gamers by gamers. Now, this spoke to me, mostly because it does imply that other expos are run by, I don't know, tax lawyers, hedge fund managers, crypto bros. But they're not wrong. Gaming expos have, particularly in recent years anyway, slightly lost the plot. I think they've leaned so far into that Comic-Con style, like con experience, that you end up with about 3 actual games to try, and then roughly 9,000 stalls selling Temu and AliExpress merch that kind of looks like it escaped from the clearance section of a clearance section. And then there are mystery bags. Always the bloody mystery bags, right? Each one promising £50 worth of value, which is technically true if you value crap. Now, the days of walking into an expo, sitting down at a booth, grabbing a controller and just playing a game without being asked to scan a QR code, join a Discord, or follow someone's cosplay account that you're not interested in. It feels like distant memories, like Blockbuster or your original Battle.net password. Now, so this says, and here is the quote, right? This isn't just another gaming expo. This is a call to players, to creators, fans. We know the industry can be more. We are here to craft an experience for you. And then it goes on and on. High energy esports tournaments. You can probably see it here on the screen. So now I have seen people online presenting this information creatively, because the big one was that people are saying that they promised 15,000 attendees. Now I had a look and I have found no evidence that they have ever claimed or promised that it had sold 15,000 tickets or even promised 15,000 attendees. What it actually says, and if you look at it properly, is that it has the capacity for that many people. I can appreciate though that level of hype, it does get people excited, and then when those numbers don't deliver, it is understandable where the upset has come from. So I get that if the wording is misinterpreted and then people are saying there's going to be 15,000 attendees, even though it wasn't guaranteed. For anyone in those videos or those posts that are saying they went because they knew there was going to be 15,000 attendees because they were guaranteed, I'm sorry, but you can't read. And that's fine. Look, neither can I. I can't read before 10 a.m. without my glasses, 2 coffees and a blood sacrifice to the gods of adult literacy. But still, I'm not sure if it's fair to pin that on the expo. Maybe they should have worded it differently. I don't know, but I'd be interested to know where you stand on that. Now, I didn't go around making a tally chart of all the exhibitors. I didn't walk in with a clipboard like I was auditing for HMRC. So I cannot comment on exactly how many there were. I'm not going to, because sometimes life's about accepting our limitations. Mine just happened to include counting. So I cannot tell you if there were 150 exhibitors or not. That's my bad. I did see a video with someone claiming that there were only 30 in comparison to the 150. But again, it is all speculation. It's not, unless that person counted, maybe they counted. Because in another video though, I saw somebody saying there were only 6 retro games, and that's not true. So again, it's the rumor mill, right? It's hard to pick out what is accurate and what isn't. So anyway, here's the map somewhere for you to see. But I guess just so you can see how they laid everything out, and then what they said we could expect before the event started. I did look at this for a good 5 minutes, nodded like I understood it, and then immediately walked in the wrong direction for everything that I plan to go and see first. Turns out maps are apparently my personal kryptonite, but we all have our weaknesses. So if we look at what they were offering, and we're going to start with the creators. Now this one I genuinely do think it was really difficult to balance. I think communities, particularly communities in gaming, are really important. Creators, they play a huge role in gaming, a huge role in that generally, especially streamers. I personally cannot stream because my idea of multitasking is breathing and blinking. But I honestly so much respect to people that can stream on Twitch and play a game and hold a conversation and not immediately fall off a cliff in Skyrim, because hats off to you. Like that skill. I actually like that they were not judging follower account when you were applying for a creator pass, just your passion for gaming. And I think that's brilliant. And what it kind of means is that in theory, even someone with the online reach of like a damp sock could apply. Now I am rooting for damp socks of the world. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway. Right. The balance though is this delicate art of sort of giving creator passes and a space to connect with your community without disappearing up the collective backside of influencer cultures. You don't want the whole thing to feel like this live action recreation of the YouTube rewind that nobody has asked for, and getting that right, it has been difficult in conventions that I have previously attended. Sort of with this one too. Now they also promised some fairly impressive guests. They've got voice actors from Baldur's Gate 3, Arcane, Call of Duty, Kingdom Come, Deliverance 2, all really relevant and fantastic games. And it's a solid lineup. They also advertised immersive experience. So they had this indie city and of course the opportunity to meet Twitch streamers. Now I couldn't find which streamers were attending on their website, but I did manage to dig them up on their Facebook page. I didn't recognize any of them, but that's on me because my gaming interests are fairly niche. I mean, if you're not streaming a medieval strategy strategy game with a 600-page wiki, I probably haven't heard of you. So like I said, that's on me, that's not on you. So I'm now going to show you the ticket prices. They aren't fun. Are they ever fun? I don't know. Now, I paid for a general admission ticket for Wednesday, which cost me £30. And then because the NEC runs its parking like some kind of dystopian monopoly, I think the parking cost me something like £18.50. So in total, I spent £48.50 to attend this event, which is, well, it's a choice. It's a choice I made, a choice I cannot undo, a choice that's going to live on my bank statement now forever as a small reminder that I am, in fact, the architect of my own financial suffering. Now, this has caused a lot of upset online, and I can empathise because admittedly that there wasn't enough at this event to cover 2 days. And some people, they not only spent like upwards of £50 for a 2-day pass, but with their accommodation and their travel costs, and the general vibe online is kind of like that they really feel let down. And for that money, this time of year, especially, I do absolutely get those frustrations. Now, before we look at the event itself, like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm just going to present my own personal experience to you as it was, without me having any knowledge that I have now of the controversies surrounding this event. I think it's really important to keep an open mind with these things. I'm not a Karen. Don't have the fringe for it. And frankly, life is far too short. If you are going to spend your precious energy complaining about things online, I genuinely think there's probably bigger world issues to be moaning about than a queue to get into an expo in central Birmingham. So honestly, sometimes I just feel like, get a drink, calm down, it's all okay. But that being said, there are a few things I think that's worth keeping in mind. This was their first event. I think booking the NEC was a bold move. Asking people to drop money this time of year, especially when Comic-Con is happening at the exact same venue only 2 weeks later, also a bold move. Holding it midweek near Christmas when most people have already burned through their annual leave like they're speed running adulthood, also bold move. I think at this point, I was very much in the frame of mind of like, okay, let's just see how this unfolds soon. And you know, that feeling when you click on a Kickstarter trailer and you're not sure if you're about to witness absolute greatness or like slow motion disaster. That was me with a packed lunch because I couldn't afford to buy lunch, and £18.50 parking because I spent my lunch money on parking. Anyway, let's go. So the event apparently started at 9 a.m. for the influencers, and then the rest of us, it started at 10. Now, myself being the punctual professional that I absolutely am not, I arrived at 10:30. The weather was aggressively British, very grey, very wet, vaguely apologetic. Not a shock for this time of year in good old England. And at this point, the weather is less a forecast and more a personality trait, I would say. So it's to be expected, but it was used as an excuse as to why everything was pushed back. When I got there, like I said, the expo hadn't started. So that was fun. I ended up in the queue for around 45 minutes, I'd say, which sounds grim, but it wasn't too bad. I actually ended up chatting to a genuinely really cool person called Luke. He works for WWF, and he had a penguin tattoo, which immediately makes him cooler than me. I like penguins. They are my spirit animals. Slightly awkward, permanently cold, always looking like they slipped on something. Anyway, the time did pass pretty quickly, but I put that down to Luke, not the actual event. Anyway, while we were in the queue, someone did come over to explain that there were delays. Everything would go ahead as planned with a revised schedule. Honestly, it was no big deal. People were kind of empathetic, being at their first event. And, you know, delays happen, especially in Britain, where we collectively treat queuing as a sport and a coping mechanism at the same time. Now, fortunately, there were no people behaving like that one family on the plane who applauds when it lands. You know the ones, the human equivalent of like a push notification that you didn't ask for. So overall, the queue itself, it was smooth sailing. Annoying, but smooth sailing, apart from the part where like nothing had actually started yet. But it was still smooth. Anyway, you'll see from the footage I took, the convention itself was, to put it politically correct, quiet. You only need to search for it on TikTok, Instagram, wherever you go. It was quiet generally. But for me, it kind of worked. I'm 5'2". So when I go to places like EGX and it's busy, I can't see anything. I'm basically navigating by sound like some sort of anxious human bat. But here, I didn't have to fight crowds. I had clear sight lines. I could actually see things. It was wonderful. Possibly the closest I will ever come to feeling tall. So for me, there's a bright side to everything. Admittedly, it was strange to have no vendors. There was an art vendor. I have seen some people say that this person was like shoved in the corner out of the way. But when I was there on the Wednesday, they were definitely right next to the area where people were doing the meet and greets, and there was a lot of foot traffic. So I'm not sure about that. But other than buying an overpriced bottle of Coke, which did cost me roughly the same as a small used car, I didn't spend any money. My wallet has never been so confused. Not a bad thing, though. I did get to play some genuinely cool games. Indie City, I'm going to start with that, was probably the busiest area, and it was great to see, especially because some of those games were still in early development. Honestly, indie games, they absolutely deserve the support. I'm not going to say anything bad. They're the ones taking risks. They're the ones trying the weird mechanics, interesting stories and art styles that aren't just photorealistic, but everyone looks slightly sweaty. Without indies, we wouldn't get half the creativity or experimentation that eventually kind of trickles up into the big budget titles. Plus, every indie dev I have ever met looks like they've kind of slept for approximately 4 hours since 2018. So morally, it feels right to just give them some love and support and respect. So seeing people kind of crowd around those booths, enthusiastic and curious and actually interested, it was probably the highlight of the whole event for me. Quiet expo, but in this area in particular, big heart. Very introvert friendly. I did briefly actually stick my head into the creator zone, but that life is really not for me. I came to play some games. I don't like talking to people. I am at my core a firmly indoor creature. The idea of networking makes me want to go and lie down on the floor and stare at the ceiling until that feeling has passed. But what was cool was when I stuck my head in, they were kind of setting up these PCs like straight out of the box for people to stream games on. I didn't stick around to see if they were used, so I can't comment on that, but I did think that was a nice touch if they were used. I have seen people complaining that it was a large space. A lot of people complaining there were no snacks. Like, you've been given a free ticket. Like, you didn't pay to be here. Go buy a snack. It's not that hard. Then I quietly backed out of that space before anyone tried to make eye contact. And with the whole, so what do you do? No, don't talk to me. Anyway, so I like retro games. I'm old enough to remember when loading screens took so long that you could go and like make yourself a sandwich, eat said sandwich, and then emotionally recover from the experience. I am very, very easy to please when it comes to retro gaming. So I kind of have no complaints with the retro gaming section. Present me with a retro game in your garage, in an empty convention hall. Hell, even in the middle of like a shopping centre or something, and I'll still be happy. That being said, others online have described it as disappointing and underwhelming. And I think it kind of depends if you're looking at it through a lens of comparison, comparing it to something bigger like Insomnia, or if you're looking at it through a lens of like, oh, I used to like these games. They were fun. Let's have some fun. I played some Street Fighter 2, obviously played Pac-Man, Dragon Ball Fighters, and a bit of Double Down as well. And honestly, I think if you came to play some games, this section did what it said it would do on the tin. For me personally, there is just kind of something about retro games that hits different. They're pure, they're simple, they're unfiltered. There's no like battle passes, no 15-minute tutorials kind of explaining how to crouch, no seasonal events where you have to collect 47 pumpkin fragments. I don't know. Just bright colours, questionable hitboxes, and the kind of sound effects that burrow deep into your soul and they stay there forever, right? Retro games, they are nostalgic. Not just because they're old, like all of us here, but because they remind you of what gaming was, well, when it used to just be gaming. Not a lifestyle, not a subscription, not just you and a joystick and the vague knowledge that your mum would come in any minute and tell you to turn that thing off, it's time for dinner. So yes, the retro section. Really not all that bad, but then again I am biased, so maybe ask someone else. Cyberpower was there. Their section was always cool, isn't it? Especially the simulators that they had set up. Powerful, full on, like my living room could never handle this kind of tech. The bus wasn't open when I was there, but I am super like socially anxious, so did I ask why it wasn't open? Absolutely not. Did it hinder my experience? Also no. Am I going to complain about it? Again, no. My anxiety would never allow me to be that brave. But I had a look at the special guests. I walked by, and unlike that time I went to meet Ian McKellen and the Hobbits, where the queue moved with the warmth and the intimacy of a the cattle processing line, these guests were actually taking their time to chat with people, like real conversations, human interaction, eye contact. I think it's really cool to see, especially when you've paid actual money to be in someone's presence. It's nice when they don't just smile at you for 0.2 seconds, sign your thing, and then send you on your merry way, like you've just been rejected as an extra for Lord of the Rings. Here, it genuinely did kind of feel like the attendees got a moment, and that's rare enough these days to feel almost luxurious in the presence of your favourite gaming voice actors. Now look, I can't organise my sock drawer, let alone an entire event. My sock drawer does currently look like a crime scene that the police would refuse to investigate, so I am absolutely not in a position to judge how to put together a full expo. Was this event on the same scale with the same hype as others I have been to? No. Not even close. It didn't have that AGX level chaos or Comic-Con level sort of like stampede energy. Could that be down to a few factors that I've been considering, like the size of the venue, the fact it was held midweek, the proximity to Christmas when most of us are broke and stressed and running on black coffee because milk is expensive, and so are Christmas presents. All that tiny detail that Comic-Con is taking place in the exact same building only 2 weeks later. Probably yes, all very plausible reasons. Now, like I said at the beginning, an open mind is needed. If nothing else, it kind of just keeps the blood pressure down, right? But as with any event, people are talking about it online, and I have had a good old look at Twitter or X and TikTok in particular, just to kind of gauge opinions on where people are at. Now, for reference, I have attended, now this is not like a brag, it's just for reference. I've attended Comic-Con, I've attended MegaCon, Salute, the UK Games Expo, gaming events like the Kent Major, even the Las Vegas Open. I've attended all of those as a creator. I have never, not once have I complained that somebody didn't hand me a custard cream. Now, don't get me wrong, would I take a custard cream? Absolutely. I'd probably take 2 and pocket a third, but I am not going to stand there and then take to the internet like I've been personally wronged because no one shoved a biscuit in my hand and didn't offer me refreshments. I think before content creation, right, my day job was hard. Like, go home at the end of the day, stare at a wall in silence for 20 minutes. Hard. Filming content at an event in your niche is fun. Tiring, yes. Your legs are going to betray you. Your back will probably file a formal complaint, but it's still fun. And honestly, just take a bottle of water. This is not special forces training. You're in a hall with heating and like-minded individuals. I think as a creator, you will have known about this event for weeks, possibly months. You had time to plan. It's not a surprise attack. You're not being deployed into a war zone. You're walking around the NEC, pointing a camera at things, taking advantage of new games, talking to people about their games and kind of just saying, yeah, that's cool. I'm going to talk about that. You've also been given a free pass, which is already quite nice. But please, you're not entitled to a snack and a recliner chair mid-expo. If you genuinely believe you are, then I really regret to inform you that you're probably not a creator. You're actually a Victorian Duchess who's just been separated from her afternoon tea. Anyway, that's my rant over. That's all I'm going to say on that. Right, getting to the other stuff though, more important things, not creator stacks. So you only have to search To The Moon Expo on Twitter, on X, and you're met with a load of frustration, including the lack of influencer biscuits, but we've covered that. Now, the valid frustrations mostly come down to the money that people spent, and fair. It's even been covered by like esports news outlets with quotes comparing the event to a graveyard, the Sahara Desert, even that fire festival, which is harsh in comparison because at least this event didn't leave you stranded on a beach with a slice of processed cheese. But obviously, I think the low attendance numbers have been a huge part of people's disappointment, and that is understandable. The buzz and the atmosphere, they are a really big part of why people go to conventions. It is difficult to feel hyped when the expo hall is so empty. You do start questioning whether you've accidentally walked into a private booking. Another frustration was with the schedule being amended. Some panels were moved. A few speakers reportedly didn't show because they had already left the convention. Personally, I only saw the Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 panel, which I thought it was pretty cool. No complaints from me for that specific panel, but I didn't get to see any others. Now, the more I read online, the more complaints kind of drifted away from logistical issues to CSI Birmingham Convention Centre. People were digging, right? And people love digging. Now, I read an article from someone that had done a lot of research into this. They noticed that this event sponsored like various gaming industry events and had been popping up in a few kind of like unexpected places. Some people online even went as far as to check Companies House. Now, I personally haven't because my threshold for admin related stress is very low. But according to what I've seen online, people have discovered that the directors are involved in marketing, which is reasonable, catering, a bit less relevant unless they were planning to feed us, but they didn't. And then designing super yacht in Dubai, which is quite the pivot. Not exactly the background you'd expect for running a UK gaming expo. Not illegal, but just baffling. Like finding out your dentist's moonlights as a chainsaw juggler. Don't know where I'm going with that. And then, of course, there's the crypto speculation. Now, because of course there is. I mean, it's 2025. If an event uses the words movement and next generation and launching, the crypto bros, they emerge from the shadows like NPCs with a broken pathfinding script. Now, people online have been questioning whether the expo was some kind of like Trojan horse for blockchain nonsense. And honestly, it is concerning because the second you mention crypto in the gaming space, half the internet sets itself on fire and the other half tries to mint the ashes as NFTs. Now, whether or not any of this speculation is true, I don't know. But the fact it's even circulating as a conversation topic is not great. Not when trust in gaming related crypto projects is already lower than like your laptop back in 2012 running Cyberpunk on launch day. And then we have AI concerns as well. So some attendees have pointed out that elements of the marketing, the artwork, and the potential materials, they look suspiciously AI generated. Now, AI art is a very touchy subject in gaming. It's right up there with console wars and whether pineapple belongs on pizza. It does. Fight me on that one. But the gaming community we're generally against AI replacing human artists, and for good bloody reason. Art is a huge part of game development. People work incredibly hard to build worlds and characters and visuals, right? AI art can feel like a shortcut, or worse, like a replacement. And when you combine that with an expo trying to present itself as for the community, it becomes a really weird mismatch. Crypto speculation plus AI art accusations plus super yacht directors equals like this perfect storm of this is giving me red flags, even though I'm trying really hard not to judge. And that's kind of where a lot of online frustration is coming from, not just what happened on the day, but everything swirling around it. And look, whether or not the organisers were trying to cash grab, avoid tax, or impress Dubai yacht owners, or even flirt with Elon Musk himself, I've seen it on Twitter, there is one group of people that you absolutely cannot trick, and that's nerdy gamers. We are probably the wrong market to try anything sneaky with. We have way too much time, way too much knowledge, and far too many spreadsheets. So, don't come at me, bro. So after all of that, I think, what is the verdict? So honestly, looking at it as an expo and removing all of the speculation, as an expo itself, I don't think it was a disaster, so to speak, but it also wasn't the second coming of EGX or Insomnia. It was a first attempt. It was wobbly in places, surprisingly wholesome in others, looking at you, Indie City. Kind of like your mate's first homemade D&D campaign. It's a bit chaotic. Some bits were missing, a few design choices you politely questioned, but the heart, thinking about Indie City, the heart was in the right place, not the event, the heart. There's space to grow, space to improve, and ironically quite a lot of literal space, but for a mid-week event in November, 2 weeks before Comic-Con, in a venue that charges enough for parking to make you briefly reconsider capitalism as a whole, I think it's somewhat delivered. It had retro games, it had the indie developers pouring their souls into projects held together with passion and caffeine. It had simulators I absolutely couldn't afford. It had voice actors actually talking to fans instead of speed running the autograph line. It had creators. You can't deny that. It had loads of creators doing their thing. Even if I am personally allergic to eye contact and I fled the creator zone like a startled woodland creature, there were a lot of creators there. Was it perfect? No. Was it fun? A little. Did I enjoy myself? Also a little. Will people online still find ways to complain? Absolutely. The internet runs on complaints. I think if one day, if it stopped complaining, then servers would probably shut down. But for me, as someone who just went to play some games, avoid social interaction and revel in retro nostalgia, it was an okay day out. It was quiet, it was chilled, it was unintentionally introvert friendly. Honestly, I think I might take that over being crushed in a crowd of enthusiastic teenagers dressed as anime characters any day of the week. If they run it again next year, I would be really curious to see how it evolves, how they overcome all of this. Maybe it will be in a better venue, maybe better organised, maybe with vendors, maybe with actual audio on their Astronaut video. The list goes on. The sky's the limit, quite literally given the name. Until then, sometimes I just think expectations might need to be lowered until somebody finally cracks the UK gaming expo scene. Keep your mind open, stay hydrated. Don't expect anyone to hand you a custard cream and you'll live longer. You're going to be fine. I do just want to say on the custard cream note, on a sincere note, we'll be serious for a minute. If you're new here, if anything I have said has offended you, I promise you it wasn't my intention. Everything I say here it is tongue in cheek. I am not aiming insults at creators. Absolutely not. Fuck, I'm a creator myself. I'm not it's just a joke. I'm not aiming insults at the attendees and I'm not trying to insult staff. If I have offended anyone, then this is me saying sorry, but I just miss the days when the online gaming world felt like just a bunch of people who wanted to game. Not a place where everyone feels entitled to perks and freebies and VIP treatment just because they talk about games on the internet. I've said my piece. But I do say it with love, not malice. I promise you that. Anyway, I'm only going to implore you one time to please do all those things you need to do to support my channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.